Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Stratford Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, public hearing and administrative session for Tuesday evening, November 1st. Seeing that there's all familiar faces in the audience, I'll forego the general announcements that I usually make, and I will go right to the reading of the first petition. Let's see, let's go the opposite way. Ms. Doolin, could you read the first petition, please?
Otis Street. Petition of Now Entity, Inc., seeking a site plan review and variances of section 7.1.1.1, subsection 2, for the minimum outdoor recreation area, and section 7.4 for the minimum front and side yard setback, minimum lot area per dwelling unit, maximum building coverage, maximum impervious area, and the minimum open space requirement. Section 12.5.1.1 and Section 12.5.7 to waive the required parking for residential apartments and the existing restaurant use, and Section 14.1 for the expansion of a non-conforming structure in order to construct a second-floor addition to create 6 new residential apartments in the CA zone. Hardship: pre-existing non-conforming lot and structure.
Thank you very much. Mr. Owen,
Good
floor
evening.
is yours.
Good evening, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Nicholas Owen. I have business offices that are located on 972 East Broadway here in Stratford, where we conduct the land development, building, and sometimes professional aspects of trying to get petitions through all of the boards and commissions of this town. If you will recall, I was here last month. I presented my petition in full. However, there were questions regarding parking, and a neighbor across the street, Bud, who was here again tonight, had some concerns, and I'm sure he's going to get up and speak again. He's a nice gentleman, and I understand his concerns, but his concerns are mainly, and he can disagree with me, he'll have the opportunity, with the bar, restaurant that is located on the first floor of that structure, which was formerly Ray's Bar and Grill. If you want me to go through some points that I made at the last month's hearing, I'm more than happy to do it. And I am at your disposal, and whatever you think you want to hear, I'm happy to tell you with regard to the past testimony. However, I think it boiled down simply to, we only had 6 parking spaces. I know that was a concern. I indicated to you last hearing that we would try to develop or find some additional parking, which we have. But in the meantime, what I would like to go through is simply that most of the items that are being requested for a waiver are pre-existing. And what I simply mean by that, they are there. They have been there forever. They were there prior to the adoption of the zoning regulations. So the only really new request is for the apartments, the 6 units above the existing structure, and the addition of 6 additional parking spaces that are on site. What I would like to do is submit as evidence a copy of a letter and a lease signed by the owner of 33-35 Light Street, which property is located within 200 feet of this establishment. There is a regulation that the board can assume that these parking spaces can be used by agreement as long as they are within 200 feet of the existing petition. And not only do I have a letter, I have a lease signed by the owner and a lease signed by the operator who was with us tonight to indicate to you that there are 4 additional parking spaces. So there will be a total of 10 parking spaces for this facility. Those 4 parking spaces on 33-35 Light Street will be used exclusively for the restaurant employees, which will open up additional parking, although the spaces will not be increased on the site. The property, as I indicated, is located within 200 feet, and there are some pictures of the property and the location of the building and other additional information on these 3 sheets, and I'd like to enter it in as an exhibit. The project is really self-explanatory just by the addition of a second floor to add 6 units. There was also a concern by Bud, that is the individual who was opposed and spoke against the petition, that this area is becoming urbanized, and he did not like that. However, I should indicate to the board that the urbanization, quote unquote, if you want to use that term, is all part of the master plan which was developed in the town of Stratford for situations similar to this up and down that boulevard. The zoning commission and the master plan would like to see residential units, would like to see mixed development. This would then become a small mixed development. Bud, the across the street neighbor, his concern is about the noise. He does not get along with the landlord. I get it. Bars and restaurants of this nature are nosy. That should not be a consideration of this board, whether or not we will be allowed to put 6 residential units above, because they're not going to emit noise, noxious odors, or create situations where it would increase the concerns of not only Bud, but other neighbors. There is on-street parking, not only on Barnum Avenue, but on Otis Street and on Light Street, and people park there. There are no parking signs along that boulevard, and we don't expect there will be. So there's plenty of room to park. The addition of 6 units and 6 tenants is not going to create a major concern. Adjoining Bud's property across the street is a closed-down used car dealership, and there are a number of items that are initially on the table for redevelopment of that property, be it another opening up another used car dealership or an apartment complex under 830G of the state statutes. Now, I bring that up for one reason, not a threat, but a possibility. Anywhere in town, you can file for an 830G project. The zoning commissions do not have a great deal of authority. They've got 0-4 ability to kill them. And in 99% of the instances, not only in Stratford, but in other towns, they get approved one way or the other. Even if the boards deny them, they will go to court, and the courts will overturn the denials, because it is a requirement by the state government. It's a mandate that each community has 10% of affordable housing units, and Stratford is only at 6 point something, I'm not sure of the exact amount. So this could have turned out, Barnum Avenue, this property, could have turned out to be an 830G. Not only would we be able to add 6 units, there was a 3rd story proposed for this, which I nixed because I didn't think it was appropriate, since I felt that 6 units was enough. We had enough area. We weren't overly concerned about the parking, and this was a good fit for this neighborhood. And with that, if there are any questions that you might have of me, please ask me now. If there's something on your mind, just remember, once you close the public hearing, you can't ask me a question. I can't answer a question. I don't want the board to go off thinking something that I said is not what you are thinking. So any question at all, I'm happy to try to answer them. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Owen.
Thank you.
Questions
I have
from
a
the board?
question.
Ms. Gibson.
I have a question in the parking for the apartment. Will they have assigned parking, the tenants? Or how
There
does
will
it
not.
work?
There are
won't be
12
any?
parking spaces in common.
And there, okay, in common?
There will not be assigned
Okay.
parking.
All right.
I mean, if that is one of the stipulations that you would like to put, we could do that, but we weren't proposing that.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering.
Ms. Witham?
I see the lease and the letter and the pictures. So the letter said 2 spots. Down below, it's crossed off and signed. It looked like by one party, maybe 2, 4. The lease doesn't have any spaces in the lease, and the picture says 6 parking spots at 33, 35. So
Right.
which is it, and
Okay.
why isn't it clear?
Let me tell you why I did that way. There are 6 parking spaces located at 3335 Light Street. So I put that, there were 6 parking spaces on that picture. You saw that. There were originally 2 at 3335 Light Street, but there are room for 4. I'm sure some of you have been out there. The back portion of the property where the 2-car garage is behind the frontier fence was closed off for a prior tenant who had a dog. That will be opened up. There are 2 parking spaces in the garage. The garage is clear. It's not used for any storage. There are 2 additional parking spaces if you drive into the property and you're facing the garage, to the right of the garage, and there's 2 additional in the driveway. So we have, I crossed that out, and it was initialed.
So why doesn't it say in the lease, the actual lease, the legal document, not the letter, but the lease, how many spots?
It's open to as many as we could fit. If you want that lease, if you want to make that as a stipulation, that the lease reflects 4 parking spaces, we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Doolin?
I wasn't clear on the spaces that are available. Are they back-to-back? The cars have to be jockeyed for position, or are they all
No.
accessible to exit?
They're accessible to entry and exit, not only the garage, but the 2 on the side and the 2 in the driveway. There's plenty of room to do side by side.
So no one's, excuse me, no one's blocking, one's car is blocking any others?
No one is blocking anyone in.
And the spaces in the back of the existing restaurant, how many did you say? There's 12?
There's 12. They're all notated on the plan. They're all of proper size, 9 by 20. There is a handicap space.
And how many of those belong to the resident that's there? There's another structure in the back there.
1.
They're only allowed 1 space?
They have 1 space. There's only 1 tenant, 1 person.
So the 11 are for the restaurant and
Yes.
the tenants?
Mhm. Keep in mind, there's no, I'm sorry, hold your thought a minute. We originally came in with a couple of prior petitions on this, and we have not had an issue with parking for the prior tenants or this tenants for the restaurant or the bar. There's never been an issue where the police have been called that there's helter-skelter parking, because not only are the parking in the back, but the parking on Barnum Avenue, the parking on Otis Street, and sometimes the parking on Light Street.
Is that a yearly lease, renewable every year? Because
No.
what happens if this
it's
person sells his house or whatever?
In perpetuity, for the life of the tenant.
Okay. The life of
The
Red
restaurant.
Bull, the restaurant? So
yes.
if I don't know who lives in the house, but if the person dies, that's part of his sale?
That's
That-
correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Yes?
Anything you guys can think of before I sit down and let Bud come up and speak with you guys? All right, I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone to speak in favor? In favor?
Not in favor, no.
Okay.
Sorry, I jumped.
Anyone in favor? Okay, no one in favor? Opposed? Come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm sure you remember me. I was here over a month ago. My name is Bud Hyman. I live across the street at 2155 Barnum Avenue. I'm not going to reiterate everything I said, but this comes to basically a quality of life situation. I've spoken to all the neighbors around me, all of them. They're really unhappy with the situation as is. All right? I guess you folks are responsible for zoning, the nightclub across the street. With all due respect, and I mean that, it was a really bad idea. I say that because I've lived there a dozen years. You had the bar across the street, I think it was Jimmy's. Long time, no issues whatsoever. People would go in and out of there. There weren't any shootings there. At least while I was there for 12 years, there were never any fights or anything outside. The patrons came and went. That's not what's going on here now. He talked about the 6 additional spaces. Again, with all due respect, if you think that's going to have an impact on any of this, you're mistaken. Because the patrons of the club, they can't park on the street. I understand that the employees of the club will park in these spaces. The street is full of cars, many nights of the week. People who live in my building, and I said this to you last time I was here, they come home, and you thought it was, you jested. I said they have to park on Mars because they have to go park blocks away because there are no spaces on the street when they come home after 9 o'clock at night. All right? And this is the urbanization, okay? We had a discussion about it. And if a big building goes into the parking lot, the used car lot right next door to me, that would certainly be the urbanization. But I think I understand you folks don't really have any control over that, and that's not what this is about. It's about the parking. It's about the noise, the quality of life. The fact that the club is there, you know, brings people in that are leaving at night, opening the doors, playing their music, dancing in the street, and I go outside and I nicely say, please, can you go home? I'm trying to sleep. And I get racial epithets sent my way. I've had twice basically said to me, go inside, you old white man. Twice. And I was nice. I said, can you go home, please? I'm just trying to sleep. So I realize that the owner of the club, he is not responsible for the patrons. I get that. But he is indirectly, I emphasize indirectly responsible because they're there to go to his club. And again, it's a quality of life issue for the people who live there in residential housing. Yes, some of the homes are multiple family, as is mine, but it's not an urban area. And if you pay attention to what's going on across the country, as I do, two administrations ago in this country, they were pushing to urbanize many parts of the country. I'm a New Yorker born and bred. And in Westchester, they were trying to do that by getting rid of being able to zone for homes versus putting buildings there. And that was put down. You may or may not be aware of it. That is a truth. This is the beginning of that, in my opinion, building this. But the point is, the parking spaces that the gentleman talked about adding does nothing to the situation, doesn't help anything. The club's there, okay? They could park on the street. They make noise. They come from his club. The quality of life is suffering. I am woken up all the time. I've called the police a number of times, like 10, and they've come. To be fair and honest with this gentleman, he's dealt with his music better. My issues these days are more of the people. I've called the police the last 2 times, and I said to them, this has nothing to do with the club. The club's closed. It's either after 1 or 2 o'clock on the weekends. He's closed them down. He's done his job. He's closed down, and he's gone home. And the people are hanging out. One night, the police come down and sit in my driveway sometimes at the end of their night, again not on him, because they want to make sure that people go home. And I'm watching one night during the summer, and they're aggregating on the corner, and the police use their PA system and say, can you please go home? Your neighbors are sleeping. And you know what the response of the kids on the corner was? Did nothing. No response. They ignored the police. I don't know about you. That's not really okay with me when I'm trying to sleep. So it's a quality of life situation. That's all it is. And the people I live with should not have to go around the block and park near over on Post Road to park their cars and have to walk back, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, whatever time they're coming home. This doesn't need to be here. Doesn't serve any great purpose. Again, it's a quality of life issue, and those additional parking spaces will do nothing. 6 spaces, really? No, I'm sorry. Any questions for me?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion,
I second.
Yeah, but he's not going to.
motion to close public hearing, Mr.
We
Chairman.
have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, this
I
is this petition, not the hearing.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And I
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're closed on that one. The new item on the agenda, let's go with Ms. Gibson. Would you be so kind as to read new item number 1?
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, thank you. Let's put it back up here. What did I do with it? Oh, goodness. Oh, thank you. Can I use yours? All right, thank you. Okay. So the new item So, 1110 Chapel Street, petition of the Red Buff Rita Inc., seeking a site plan review and variance of section 4.2 to waive the minimum required 10 feet side setback of 5.6 feet and a waiver of the maximum allowed building coverage from the existing 28.3% to 29.1%, where 20% is required, in order to legalize the construction of the side yard platform, stairs and roof deck, incidentals to the single-family dwelling, hardships, uncertainty as to the adjoining property line.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bellis, Attorney Bellis, excuse me.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Attorney Steve Bellis at the Pellegrino Law Firm, and I represent Red Buff Rita, which is the owner of 1110 Chapel Street. The good news is that Red Buff Rita has come to an agreement with the adjacent property owner, Mr. Lombard, and if this variance is granted, it will do three things. It will make the structure in conformance with your zoning regulations. It will have us withdraw a cease and desist appeal with Mr. Dan Brennan, and it will have us withdraw a adverse possession lawsuit that was between the two owners with a disputed property line. So I think it was at the suggestion of this board to make an application for a variance. And as I said to you, I think the first time I came, I would consider it a minor variance in that it's approximately 6 inches of the deck went over into the setback area, and the coverage is a couple percentage when you have stairs and a landing. The calculation was exceeded your zoning regulations by a couple percentage. So with that, having said that, I looked at the drawing that we now know, and I've given to Dan, is 5 feet 6 inches. So we're looking to have that side setback, and the coverage would go from 28.3, I think it's to 29.1%. And that, if you grant that variance, then those issues that I mentioned will take care of a lot of angst or problem between the neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Ms. Witham?
So the hardship is no longer uncertainty as to the adjoining property line?
No, that still is, that is the hardship. What I'm saying is that we will then, if the variance is granted, that lawsuit that's trying to determine the uncertainty as to that property line will be withdrawn. It's in the Superior Court now. The hardship is the same.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Ms. Doolan?
I guess so there still will be the hardship of the property line, and I'm sorry, Mr. Lombard, are you the neighbor?
Yes.
And you still have a question as far as the property line goes?
No, there will be no more question. It'll be settled.
Okay, so there will no longer be a hardship.
There will no longer be any dispute as to that property line between those neighbors. We've agreed on the property line.
Okay, and you're fine with,
Yeah, Ms. Doolan, we're not
What?
allowed to ask questions to someone who's not at the podium.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can only ask questions to Attorney Bellis right now.
Maybe I did not make myself clear, and it could stem from Ms. Whitman's question. There was a hardship because we didn't know exactly where the property line was. However, if the board grants the variance, there will no longer be any litigation over that property line. We have agreed to where it is. The fences will remain where they are. The structure will remain. It's a global settlement.
thank you.
Sorry I didn't articulate that well. Yeah.
Thank you. Any additional questions to Attorney Bellis? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone to speak in favor of the petition? Mr. Lombard, please come forward. Thank you.
Bob Lombard, 1140 Chapel Street. I live right next to 1110 Chapel Street, who put in the variance. And my neighbor and I have come to an agreement, private agreement, to resolve the matter. and I'm here to speak in favor of it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? In favor. Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close this petition.
Motion to close new item 1, Mr.
We have a
Chairman.
motion by Mr. Llewellyn, second by Ms.
Second.
Doolan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Seeing no other items on the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Llewellyn, second by Ms. Gibson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now go into the administrative session. We will start that at 7:25. First item on the agenda, items listed on the public hearing. So that could be the carry forward item or the new item. Does anyone wish to take any action on? We'll start with the very first one, which is 215262 Barnum and Otis. Ms. Witham.
I'll take 2152-2162 Barnum Avenue and 79 Otis Street off the table. Is that right?
Motion to take it off for discussion. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now on the record for 215262 Barnum and 79 Otis. To facilitate the discussion, we need either a motion to approve, deny, or table.
I don't believe I think I'm making a motion to deny it. I don't believe the parking, unless it's assigned, for residents only of whatever this apartment complex might be called. The people aren't going to park if they have to walk further. So I'm of a mind just to deny the.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? There a second? All right, having no second, that motion fails. Do we have a motion to then either approve or table?
I'm interested in approving it.
All right, we have a motion.
I feel like he said, the attorney said that if we wanted to make, or ask them to put assigned parking for the tenants, that they would do that. He did say that they would do that in that location. I mean, it's still a problem. The bar is still going to be there, but as far as housing and apartment space for the tenants, I mean, we can't do anything about the bar. That seems to be the problem.
Okay, so we have a motion.
So,
We have a motion to approve. Before we go into further discussion, we have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
For purposes of discussion, I will second the motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now open for discussion. Ms. Witham.
If we were to approve, I definitely believe that the lease should state the number of spots that 33-35 Light Street is offering, because it was very wishy-washy and unclear and had numbers in all different places, and I'm not sure how much that letter is a legal document compared to the actual lease.
Okay, Mr. Llewellyn, I see your light's on.
No, just following up on what Ms. Whittam was saying. It is kind of, as presented, it's a little bit confusing as to the number of the spots. The fact that the letter is not stapled and attached to the lease agreement. Then there's a reference to 6 spots on a picture that was submitted by Attorney Owen. And they did already agree that if we stipulate the 4 spots, they are acceptable to us proceeding in that way.
Right. So my understanding is this. So we've got the potential for 6 units. We've got 11 spaces on the property. These additional, we'll call them 4 spaces, will be for the restaurant use for their employees only, which means they will not be advertised to the public as spaces they could park in. This board has the ability to assign or designate the parking behind the building be for the tenants only, meaning the residential units. We have that ability to do so since they've provided off-site parking in terms of 4 spaces for the number of employees which approximately work in the location at any particular time. Plus, we also have on-street parking. Now, I had the unfortunate, I say the word unfortunate, my brother-in-law was in the hospital, he had some surgery, and I drove past that location on a Tuesday and a Wednesday evening, between 7:30 and 9:30, and I was able to find parking within a block of the area, just driving down Barnum Avenue. There was no prevented, no parking on either side. I understand parking is an issue, but the restaurant/bar establishment has been there for, oh God, forever. Different owners, but forever. That's always been a perpetual problem. I mean, it's the same problem as some of you are familiar with Salerno's. They have no on-site parking. So that aspect is something that has existed and does exist. Since this board has the ability to designate that each unit be assigned a parking place, and that the lease stipulate 4 spots in the agreement between property owners, which quite frankly, it's the same property owner. It's just a different LLC controlled by the same entity. That's why the signatures are the same on the document. Then I would have no opposition, because our master plan does call for more residential units in an area like Barnum Avenue for mixed use. And besides, it's directly on a GBTA bus line, which is public transportation, which is another thing that the town master plan looks at. So it would be kind of achieving quasi what the master plan is trying to do.
In designating the on-site parking for the residents, we will basically be making no impact at all to any of the current parking issues in the neighborhood, because the residents will be parking on-site.
Correct. That would be,
I just
that would
wanted
be,
to clarify that. And
in
make
my
sure that we're all on
estimation,
the
that
same
would be
page.
neutral. That would be an absolutely, correct, that would be absolutely neutral to the existing condition, which, just for clarification purposes, is the one gentleman who spoke in opposition. This board didn't approve Ray's Grill. First, it pre-existed, and second off, that's the zoning commission. We're the Board of Appeals. We don't have that kind of authority. I did when I was over there, but I'm over here now, so I don't have that. Thank you, Mr. Luan, for that clarification. So what I would ask is that the petitioner amend their petition with the friendly amendment that the lease state the number of 4 spots as a stipulation, that the parking behind the structure be designated and assigned parking for the residents only. Well, residents and guests, yeah, for the use of the residents, yes. That it meets a goal of the urban mixed use corridor, that this site has unique characteristics which differ from other parcels in the district because of its location on the corner, and that we have a parking agreement in place. So if you'll accept that as a friendly amendment, and if the seconder accepts that.
You need to accept.
I accept it.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Any further discussion?
I think adding some of those things really help, and like you say,
Focus it,
makes
yeah.
it neutral as far as, I mean, if it was a problem before, it's still a problem, at least the tenants have a place to park.
And I apologize, I didn't realize the off-street, off-site, that was for employees.
That's for the employees of I'll call it a restaurant, the establishment. I
Yes.
don't want to call it a bar or restaurant, I don't want to, or nightclub, depending. I'll just call it what it is. It's a commercial establishment. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Votes aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that. We now go on to the next item. Someone like to take 1110 Chapel off the table?
Motion to take 110 Chapel Street off the table.
We have a motion to take Chapel off the table. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms.
second.
Gibson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. It's now open for discussion, well, for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve 1110 Chapel Street.
There a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Doolan. Discussion on the motion. Ladies and gentlemen, I really think that this is, it does do three things. I mean, it shows that discussions between two parties work, that this will eliminate, nasty litigation between two parties. It will eliminate the current nonconformity, and it will eliminate the town having to deal with this back and forth on the cease and desist. The only loser here technically is the regulations, but for 0.4%, I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over it. So I think that this is the best agreement and settlement for the community and for the two adjacent property owners and for this board. And I thank you all very much for working with us, including the two individuals that are here this evening. Thank you, gentlemen, and your clients for working with us. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we now move on to the other items of business. And we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, October 4th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from
Motion
October
by-
4th meeting.
Ms. Witham, second by Ms. Gibson.
Thank
All those, any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Campsite. Erosion and sediment. Members' concerns and comments.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to throw something out there more as a point of reference than anything else. We kind of heard reference to 8-30G again tonight with regards to approving the Barnum Avenue property. In our prior months, we've basically, laid the groundwork and set the table for some parcels of land to be subdivided in such a way that they stay in character with the existing neighborhoods. Attorney Owen mentioned tonight that our affordable housing unit number is at somewhere at 6.4, X% right now. And so, I think that we should be aware that some of what we're doing is sort of playing a role in defending the town and the neighborhoods in light of potential overdevelopment. The approval we did tonight on Barnum Avenue is in accordance with what's been set forth in the Plan of Conservation and Development. And it's great working with you, Mr. Chairman, as well as the rest of the board in conducting ourselves in that way. And hopefully we get more opportunities to continue doing the work we're doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those comments. Under other items, we have to approve the 2023 yearly schedule. We had to make a couple of adjustments, one of which was, obviously, we're not meeting on the 4th of July. So we moved it to a Wednesday, and we can't meet, I guess the 1st November is Election Day, so we're not necessarily going to make elected public officials work on Election Day. So from that standpoint, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve our calendar for next year.
Make a motion to approve calendar for 2023.
Motion by Mr. Llewellyn,
And I'll second.
second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Last item is adjournment. Oh,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
why, thank you very much. We have a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibson. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Off the record, 7:38. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening and a wonderful Thanksgiving.